The nervous system of vertebrates is divided into the central nervous system, peripheral nervous system and autonomous nervous system. The central nervous system has brain and spinal cord as their components. The peripheral nervous system comprises of cranial and spinal nerves which arise from brain and spinal cord. Autonomous nervous system comprises of sympathetic and parasympathetic nervous system. Brain and spinal cord are the main components of central nervous system. Brain and spinal cord have nerve cells and glial cells. In brain, outer layer is grey in color. The cell bodies of all neurons are present in the outer layer and looks dull grey in color, hence called as grey matter, and inner layer is called as white matter. It has myelinated axons, hence appears white. In spinal cord, the white matter is outside and the grey matter is inside. Brain and spinal cord both are covered by three membranes called meninges. Outermost layer is tough, fibrous and non-vascular layer called dura mater. The inner layer is called pia mater. The middle membrane is called as arachnoid membrane. The space between dura mater and arachnoid membrane is called as the subdural space. The space between arachnoid membrane and pia mater is called as the arachnoid space. Both subdural and subarachnoid space is filled with a fluid called cerebrospinal fluid. It flows from brain to spinal cord and also from spinal cord to brain. It protects the brain from injuries, acting as a shock absorber and provides nourishment to the cells of central nervous system. Brain. It is soft and delicate structure, enclosed in a bony structure called cranium. Cranium protects the brain from injuries. It is divided into forebrain, midbrain and hindbrain. Let's see all of them in detail. Forebrain. It is the largest anterior portion of the brain, known as cerebrum, and has two cerebral hemispheres, the right and then the left hemispheres. These right and left hemispheres are distinguished or separated by a median groove or fissure. These two hemispheres are connected by a bundle of axons. The outer part of cerebral hemispheres is dull grey in color with bodies of neurons called as cerebral cortex. The surface of the brain gets folded and forms ridges and grooves. The elevated ridges are called gyri and the furrows or grooves are called as sulci. The gyri and sulci increase the surface area of cortex so that more number of neurons can be accommodated. Each cerebral hemisphere, the right and then the left, is divided by three deep grooves and are distinguished into four lobes. The frontal, which is responsible for thought, language, voluntary movements. Parietal, controls emotions and touch. Temporal, controls hearing, memory and functions. And occipital lobes, which processes visual images. Cerebrum is the center of controlling several functions in the body. The right cerebral hemisphere controls the functions of the left side of the body and the left cerebral hemisphere controls the functions of right side of the body. The cerebral cortex, which is the outer part of cerebral hemisphere, has several controlling centers. Visual cortex is responsible for sense of sight. Olfactory cortex is responsible for sense of smell. This forebrain is connected to the midbrain by diencephalon. Diencephalon is responsible for emotions like pain, pleasure, and anger. The central portion of diencephalon is called hypothalamus. Pituitary gland, an endocrine gland, is attached to hypothalamus by a stalk called infundibulum. The secretions of hypothalamus control or initiate the secretions of pituitary gland, and the secretions of pituitary gland control secretions of hormones of other endocrine glands. Hypothalamus secretes hormones and regulates body temperature, hunger, thirst, emotions, BMR, etc. Midbrain. Midbrain has 4 optic lobes called corpora quadrigemina. It is responsible for binocular vision in man, and some of the nerve cells control body muscles and also their movements. Hindbrain. The third part of brain is hindbrain. It has 2 parts, cerebellum and brainstem. Cerebellum lies behind the cerebrum, and this is connected with forebrain, midbrain and also brainstem. This also has grey matter on surface and white matter in the deeper layers in the center. It regulates the voluntary movements of the body and also maintains equilibrium and balance of the body. You must have noticed that people who consume alcohol cannot walk straight because alcohol impairs the cerebellum, which in turn affects balancing. Brainstem. This brainstem has 2 parts, pons varolii and medulla oblongata. Pons varolii has bands of transverse nerve fibers. These nerve fibers connect the 2 sides of cerebellum and cortex. Medulla oblongata, unlike other parts of the brain, has white matter on the surface and grey matter inside. Medulla oblongata regulates involuntary functions and also control vital functions such as respiration, heartbeat, blood pressure, temperature, secretions by salivary glands, etc. And it continues as another important part of the central nervous system is the spinal cord, which is a long and cylindrical structure. This spinal cord passes through the vertebral column, which extends all along the dorsal surface of the trunk. This means the vertebrae of the vertebral column protect the spinal cord from injuries like the cranium protects the brain. Unlike the brain, which has grey matter outside and white matter inside, spinal cord has white matter outside and grey matter inside. The grey matter is butterfly shaped or in the shape of H. Each segment of the H-shaped grey matter is called as horn, and upper horns are called as dorsal horns and lower horns are called as the ventral horn. In the middle of the grey matter, there is a canal called as spinal canal. This spinal canal runs all along the length of the spinal cord and is filled with cerebrospinal fluid. From the sides of the spinal cord, 31 pairs of nerves take their origin, one from each side, and supply branches to various parts of the body. It acts as a relay station, receives information from various parts of the body below the head and sends this information to brain. Also, it receives information from brain and sends this information to other parts of the body. Apart from this, spinal cord plays an important role in reflex action. After studying about the central nervous system, let us now study about the peripheral nervous system. Peripheral nervous system has nerves which arise from brain and the spinal cord. We have already studied that each nerve consists of a bundle of axons, and these nerves carry information from and to the brain. Peripheral nervous system includes both cranial and spinal nerves. Peripheral nervous system has 43 pairs of nerves, of which 12 pairs of nerves arise from brain called as cranial nerves. 31 pairs of nerves arise from the spinal cord called as spinal nerves. Cranial nerves. These cranial nerves arise from different parts of the brain and innervated into different parts of head such as retina, eye muscle, nose, ear, tongue, neck, etc. Some cranial nerves are sensory nerves, carries information to brain from the sense organs. Some are motor nerves, carry information from brain to sensory parts, and some are mixed, which carry information from and to brain from sense organs. Of the 12 pairs of nerves, vagus nerve, the 10th nerve, is more important. This vagus nerve controls the rate of heartbeat and secretions of pancreas. Spinal nerves. Spinal nerves take their origin from spinal cord. All the spinal nerves are mixed nerves having both sensory and motor fibers. The nerve fibers arising from dorsal horn are sensory in function, and nerve fibers arising from the ventral horn are motor in function. These supply nerve fibers to different organs present in trunk and appendages. Autonomous nervous system has sympathetic and parasympathetic nervous system. Sympathetic nervous system helps an individual to meet stress conditions by increasing the heartbeat, blood pressure, and overactivity of organs. Parasympathetic nervous system helps in retaining normalcy of individuals after relieving the stress. Reflex arc and reflex action. When we touch a hot object, we withdraw our hands. When bright light is focused, we close our eyes. All these actions are called reflex actions or reflexes.
Reflexes are automatic, fast, immediate and involuntary responses which occur without our thinking. Our brain is not involved in performing reflexes. Then, what carries the reflex actions? It is the reflex arc, which is structural and functional unit that carries out the reflex actions. What is reflex arc? The path followed by reflex action is called reflex arc.
The reflex arc consists of receptor, sensory nerve, that is afferent, an association neuron called interneuron, motor nerve called as afferent nerve, and effector organs such as muscle. These receptors receive the information about stimuli and generate electric potentials. In the form of impulse, it carries information from receptor organ to spinal cord. In the spinal cord, these neurons make connections with other neurons in grey matter by association neurons. These association neurons process the information and generate response. The motor nerves, which arise of the central horn of spinal cord, carry information from interneurons to effector organs, which is a muscle.
There are two types of reflexes. They are conditional and unconditional reflexes. Unconditional reflexes are inherited. We do not learn these reflexes but are shown from birth. Conditional reflexes are not inherited. They are learned by experience.
When our hand touches a hot object, we withdraw it immediately. Such reflexes are called unconditional reflexes. Ivan Pavlov, a Russian scientist, has performed experiments on conditioned reflexes. He has done an experiment on dog. We observed that dog starts salivating when it sees food. When bell alone was ringing, the dog did not salivate. He started ringing the bell when the dog was given food. When food was given and simultaneously bell rang, the dog was salivating. After few days, he observed that the dog starts salivating when it hears the bell, even if the food is not given. In other words, the dog associated the sound of the bell with the food and assumes whenever bell rings, food is given. In expectation of food, saliva starts flowing even when only bell rings. In human beings, whenever we hear our national anthem, we stand steady. Such are called as the conditioned reflexes.
Brain is a marvelous and complicated organ. Unlike other organs, brain depends only upon glucose for energy requirement. The greatness of the brain is it can analyze a problem and think of a solution. It can do this even when full information is not given. It can communicate its analysis through language. Man has developed the ability through brain to give script to sounds so that the information he gathered was written and passed to next generation. The decade of 1990 to 2000 is called as the decade of brain. A large number of scientists are working to understand the functioning of the human brain.